All right. See lots of awesome faces popping in. Hey, a couple familiar faces popping into the webinar. That's awesome. What's going on, Austin? Several others. Okay. Welcome to the first, technically speaking, unwebinar series from Jabra. My name is Josh Blalock. I'll be hosting this first one. I'm the chief video evangelist here at Jabra, being loud on social media about our video collaboration platform and portfolio. And the whole point of this presentation is to talk a lot about not just that, but audio as well, and to get a little bit nerdy with it, to get into the technical weeds. So hopefully we accomplish that today and kind of expand on that into the future. We have got a few more people popping in, so we'll give everyone just a few more seconds to get in here. I don't have any great jokes or cool intro music lined up to kind of fill this initial part, so I'm just kind of rambling for a second. But good amount of people coming in. Let's go ahead and move on with the presentation. Most of the stuff is intro, so people will they'll get it as we're moving along here. Today's session, the first in this series, is unpacking a ridiculous amount of AI in the Jabra PanaCast 50. Because, in fact, there is a ridiculous amount of AI there. And what we're going to cover today is only some of the highlights, but really there's a lot more going on there and a lot more that will be going on there into the future. We'll talk about why that is, how that works from our side, and what you can expect on the partner customer side of that. So before we get into the content, few housekeeping items. I don't want this to be a long, stretched out, boring slide, but I want to cover kind of what we expect this to be, what we hope it is, and how we're hoping you'll gain value from it. And of course, we're going to solicit feedback at some point too, so we can make this better over time. But first of all, I love it that someone on social media, after listening to my description of it, called it an unwebinar. So I've adopted that. This is indeed not supposed to be a webinar. Webinars are great. They've got their place and their purpose for educating and sharing information and putting news out there. This is meant to be far more conversational. Me to you, you to us, back and forth. Turn on your cameras if you're comfortable. If you want to ask a question, please reference the unrules of engagement here. So again, we want this to have some structure, but mostly conversational. So we want to kind of get rid of too many rules. But this is a Teams webinar. With that comes some constructs of a Teams meeting. So if you're familiar with how to raise your hand, raise your hand when you got a question. If not, there is a raise hand button at the top, really hard to miss. Click that, and one of the awesome team members on this side will see that you've got a question. We're going to have a Q&A section at the end, but you can also ask questions all throughout. I love being interrupted. I can ramble. I've been trained to ramble in various ways. So please stop my rambling at any point when you've got a question, you want clarification, or you want to add a point or a comment, whatever. Jump in with that. We'll unmute you and you can jump in with the conversation. If you're not comfortable with audio, video participation, because you don't know everyone on the call, and that's just the case with some people, all good. You should be able to throw a comment in the chat. Do so there. We've got an awesome team of people lined up on the Jabra side that will be fielding questions and making sure we're trying to address each one. Not all questions can be answered on the fly. We may have to take some things offline. Some of you love to get really deep into the weeds. You know who you are, and we might have to take some of that offline, but that's okay. We'll figure out what works best. With that comment, I want to also stress, well, it's not on this slide, this is not an NDA session, right? We have not validated anybody on this call to be under NDA. So if you try to pry deep into roadmap or things like that, where we've got to get blessing from other teams within Jabra, we may have to punt that for later. Just keep that in mind as we get into the content and as you bring your questions forward. But still, even if you're not sure if you can ask it, and we'll go from there. Lastly, for this session, we are doing a giveaway to kind of kick off the Technically Speaking series, the hybrid work bundle of the Evolve 265 Flex, which is this amazing new headset, making a lot of waves in the industry. For those of you that watched Danny Hayasaka, he gave a very glowing review of this being one of the best headsets he's used to date. And then we'll be giving away alongside that the Jabra PanaCast 20, which is our 4K personal webcam. Also, a ridiculous amount of AI packed into this thing, but we're giving this away as a bundle. So Stay tuned for that. We're not giving that away on the call. We got to pull our attendance report afterward to see who actually showed up. For those of you that showed up, we'll be doing a random drawing afterwards, and then whoever won will contact you via the email address that you provided to register with. So watch out for that, and good luck to you all. With that, let's not waste any more time on intro stuff. Let's get straight into the meat of what this is. Now, how this is going to flow, I'm going to go through 20 to 25 minutes worth of presentation material, but don't worry, we're going to stop in between bits of that. And my man, Rob Houston, is going to jump in and he's going to do a little bit of demoing on some of these capabilities and features. And it's a great time to stop and ask if you've got points of clarity, if you want to know some of the nuances about what he's showing off or what I just talked about. Again, throw a raised hand up in there and we'll cover that. So we're going to break up the monotony of me presenting with demoing. And at the end of that, we will jump into a wide open Q&A portion of the session. But again, Q&A is not reserved for then. Ask at any point. So first, what is the Jabra PanaCast 50? My assumption is if you're here, you kind of know what that is already. The PanaCast 50, this one right here, you can see a couple of them behind me back there. Actually, one of them is cheating. It's not the P50, it's the PanaCast 50 VBS, which is the Android bar coming out this next month. But the PanaCast 50 is an all-in-one video bar with audio. I accidentally hit the pause, the hold button, and I am back. So the joys of a speakerphone sitting right in front of you. To start out with, on the PanaCast 50, there's a 180-degree field of view. Now, 180 degrees, just so you get a feel of what that means, that is the entire room. Right? This bar is mounted to the wall, let's say. Everything from that wall, corner to corner, all the way back, is covered by 180 degrees. It's extremely immersive. It's a thing that we have carried forward into our Android bar, and it has existed since our original PanaCast. It is kind of a hallmark of our video collaboration solution, with the exception of that PanaCast 20. But that is the starting piece of what the PanaCast 50 does in terms of video. It also has premium audio. For those of you that have known of Jabra for some time, even if you're just now becoming aware that Jabra does video, and we do video, you probably know us from having very high quality premium headsets, speakerphones, earbuds. We have made a name for ourselves quite well in the audio side of the business that has carried forward into our video products. And so this bar has 8 microphones and a beamforming array, amazing sound being poured in through the speakers, full duplex audio. That's also present. And aside from being an audio video front of room video bar, it's got a lot of edge AI packed onto this thing, courtesy of 8 processors running on it. That's a lot of compute power. That powers all the stuff we're about to talk about, and it also will power us into the future. What that means for customers, what that means for partners is that investments in the PanaCast 50 are protected well into the future, because whatever you would get now at the time of obtaining a PanaCast 50 is not what you will have down the road. You will have more features, more capabilities, a more full-blown device as we release what we call value packs. You may also know them as firmware updates. But we call them value packs because they're not just bug fixes and things like that, improvements. They are brand new features coming to the PanaCast 50. So there's our baseline. That's what it is. We're going to cover 7 different areas of AI that are on board this thing. The 180-degree field of view is where we'll start. Intelligent zoom is another mode we're going to talk about. From there, we'll transition to virtual director and dynamic composition. And all 4 of those, Rob is going to demo for us. And then Rob gets off the train of demoing at that point, and we're going to talk about whiteboard content camera, the intelligent speaker and facial recognition features that are coming, as well as the intelligent meeting spaces that are coming. So let's talk about 180-degree field of view. The image stitching is what I have in quotation marks. We'll see why that is. Parentheses, sorry. First of all, the cameras, there's 3 13-megapixel 4K cameras at the front of this device, and kind of that curved array. I've got an image that is really a video image running on each of these slides. You can kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about as we go on. There is no audio with it, so if you think you're missing audio, you're not. I'm going to talk over them. But these images, each of these 3 cameras, they get stitched together by the AI behind the scenes. That's how we accomplish a 180-degree field of view. We're taking 3 images, stitching them together seamlessly. And that is a dynamic image. So as someone gets up and moves around the room or things are happening in the room, you don't see that line where we're piecing the 2 images together and that person kind of glitches out for a sec. That's not even present. Now you can see that line if you take your hand and you go and put it right in front of the camera like that. You do this, now on the screen, you will start to see a little bit of where we are intelligently stitching that together. However, how many of you are having your meetings 3 inches in front of the camera? Probably no one. So once you're in the room, even if the table is up against the wall, that stitching is seamless. You see none of that. So it's a beautiful 180-degree field of view. And again, like I described a minute ago, that captures the entirety of a room. So as real estate shrinks in those conference rooms, you need to make use of more space. Looking behind me, if I had my two munchkins, and they'd hate being called munchkins, but my 2 boys, if they were in the room and they were standing literally on either side of those bars, up against the same wall the bars are mounted to, you would see them in the image. And what's more is you would not see them as some stretched out, obscure, curved representation of themselves. You'd see them as their natural human form, not stretched. You get a little bit of the stretching at the top of the image, right? The curvature of the ceiling, maybe you see, but down at the people level, everybody looks natural from one corner of the room all the way to the other. So that's the first bit of magic that comes with the PanaCast 50 when it comes to AI and how we do 180-degree field of view. With that, I'm going to go ahead and spotlight Rob here, and I'm going to stop presenting, and Rob's going to kind of demo what that 180 degrees looks like compared to where he's at now.
Yep. Thanks, Josh. And by the way, I'm glad that you clarified the punctuation that we were meant to be looking at on the slide, because I always get confused about quotes and parentheses. So that totally clarified everything. So thank you for that. So I'm using a PanaCast. I've got kind of a, if you can imagine, as a sales engineer at Jabra, I've got a few PanaCast 50s here in my office. So I'm joined via the Teams desktop client. I'm using OBS as a virtual camera. So I'm able to kind of easily switch between a bunch of PanaCast 50s just so you kind of know how I'm demoing today. But you're seeing me and hearing me through a PanaCast 50. And as you can imagine, I'm starting with a preset for the grand reveal of the actual 180-degree field of view here in my office. Just going to use our remote control to basically summon a preset. So that goes from, what was a focus view of myself, that just a preset that I set to kind of start with what you might have envisioned was a normal webcam field of view, normal webcam view of me here in my office. So this is kind of the grand expanse of my space. I've got the PanaCast 50. There's a monitor that I'm looking at the meeting on, kind of right above the PanaCast 50s that I have kind of arranged that we'll be demoing today. And again, it's about a 10 by 10 room. So typical of a very small huddle room. There's a desk kind of up against it. I'll bring in some friends in and out. You kind of see one of the people that'll be joining me in the meeting a little bit later. And again, as Josh mentioned, right, like if I reach up and kind of go up to the full front of the PanaCast 50, you can kind of see, this is the 180-degree field of view. I don't know if you could catch where the seams were, but when we talk about kind of the design of that camera array, there's overlap in those 3 lenses that, kind of in the 2 seams between the 3 lenses. And that's very much on purpose. So that allows our processing to kind of choose where to move the line between the lenses, so that, for instance, if someone's face is landing in there, we can move the stitch around that face so that, to keep things looking natural. And for people who are not necessarily fans of being on camera in meeting rooms, that at least the way that they see themselves in their local feed, roughly right for how they see themselves when they're brushing their teeth in the morning. So that's the 180-degree field of view. I think Josh is going to talk next about, this is obviously a lot, right? My coworker and I are fairly anonymized here in this wide panorama. So we'll talk about what we can do within this field of view here next, that is kind of along with what customers prefer and how they like their cameras to work.
Thank you. That is nothing left to the imagination with Rob's room there. You saw all of it, right? That's his entire office from wall to wall. As he put his hands up, he was pretty much touching each side of the PanaCast 50 practically with his fingertips. So it's incredibly wide. And it was natural. It didn't look like he was like, had super long stretchy arms. It looked like regular him reaching out. So I'll go ahead and turn that spotlight off. Okay, I'm going to resume from where we were a minute ago, 180-degree field of view. Moving on, intelligent zoom, like Rob just referenced there. This kind of says, hey, you got 180-degree field of view. That's awesome, right? Lots of power there. However, if that room is not filled with people and you've got one or two people in this big room where you're capturing everything, that is like great for some circumstances, but then when maybe you're trying to maximize real estate on the screen for remote viewers, you don't want to capture the whole room. You want to make use of just that one or two people in the room. So intelligent zoom can say, all right, I can tell there's a person here and not all the rest of this stuff. Let's crop all that out. No wasted real estate on screen. And there's a couple different options you get when you set it to that. If you happen to set up your P50 to operate in intelligent zoom, you have 5 different speeds at which you can change that. Why would you change the speed? What is the speed for, right? We've cropped the image. Why would we want to, what is the speed to cropping? We're talking about speed because sometimes the presence in that room changes. We go from 1 or 2 people in the room to 4 people in the room or more. And as that happens, the camera widens out, as we see in this demo, to capture everyone. So they're all included, but we still don't need to include the wasted space in the room. So you can change that to slowest, slower, medium, faster, or fastest. Now, this is, again, another mode that we can operate in. So I will, again, turn this back over. We'll spotlight Rob here one more time. And I'm going to stop presenting so we can get a look at how intelligent zoom works with his buddies in his home office.
Thank you, sir. So again, same camera we were on before. Instead of going to the a preset that I had made to do the whole full 180-degree field of view, I'm just going to turn on intelligent zoom, again, using our little handheld optional remote control. So you can see now, as opposed to just me on the first preset or just the entire office on the second preset, it's now just discovering Danny and I and cropping to us, right? So that kind of takes the onus off of the people in the room to be minding, what's the camera looking at? Is this seeing all of us, et cetera? As Josh mentioned, if people come and go, when someone kind of joins in, and again, Dennis is now seated very close to the front of the wall. As I'm looking at the front of the room to the right, the camera pans out to pick up Dennis. If Mac joins kind of in the seat next to me, we'll pan out a little bit to join him. And again, when Dennis goes to get more coffee, we'll tighten back in on the people that remain in the room. So, again, intelligent zoom, group framing by our unique name. And it really is, I'd say in my time, as working with customers on cameras that have these kind of smarts, I think this is probably the most typically deployed mode. Because again, it gives people outside the room kind of the best view of the people who are in the room. So you can see everyone. Again, we'll talk a little bit about some of the trends around helping, even here, we're sort of sharing this one video feed. So things to do to help increase our presence within this video feed. But this is kind of the most typical view we see. Because again, if I'm barking at him, who I'm gesturing at, or if he's, yucking it up while I'm trying to be serious, you can read the room as if you were in the room with us, because you can see the talker, but you can also see how everyone else is listening. That's intelligent zoom.
I love the yucking it up. That's how I would envision it would be if we were in a room together. Rob, you'd be the one
Never has happened. We've never been in a room together. What are you talking about? You're just something on TV. Yeah.
Got it. Awesome. Okay. So going back in, we've got 180-degree field of view, or you can use intelligent zoom. But what about those scenarios where you don't want everyone in the room captured? You want to focus on the speaker in the room, right? As the industry collectively may refer to it, speaker tracking, our Jabra-esque nomenclature for that would be virtual director. And what this means is that those processors on board are now, yes, understanding who's in the room, but using that array of 8 microphones on board, it is able to say, this person is the one talking. I'm going to focus in on them. They are the person that I need to that should have the attention on them. We don't want the distractions of the room in this meeting. We want the active speaker. Now, let's say, that's great for a situation where I'm talking civilly And then Rob takes a turn talking civilly, and then we start to get heated and we get into it and we go back and forth really fast, right? And then that's kind of hard for keeping up with in terms of who's talking now, because we maybe we're talking over each other. It can actually zoom on out and capture the conversation rather than just the speaker, right? That's kind of the intelligent side of that, capturing the relevant conversation that is happening in that room. And again, this is done through the 8 onboard microphones. Now, this is an important point for us to call out. Something that comes up often, I think, with the solutions consultants team, and as we get into these technical conversations, oftentimes there's a request to say, well, what if I take this external, center of room speaker or whatever, I plug it in, it's USB, I just want to plug it in and use a separate mic and speakers instead of what's on board. That's fine. You can have a separate USB mic and speakers in the room and use the video on the PanaCast 50. However, a mode like Virtual Director relies on the onboard mics to work and function. So if you were to bypass the onboard mics and utilize the separate external third-party mics, that's something you need to be aware of. You need to bake that into your strategy and your plans as you move forward. Virtual Director wouldn't be a good fit for rooms where you're doing that. Outside of that, and rooms where the PanaCast 50 and its onboard audio is more than enough and fits the bill correctly, then Virtual Director is an awesome option for tracking the active conversation. Rob, I will go ahead and spotlight you once again. Let's show everyone what exactly Virtual Director looks like in motion here.
So you can see I brought some people into the room with me, and Virtual Director, as soon as I start talking, right, it zooms in on me. So this is, again, now you're losing the ability to kind of read the room. But again, I think where we've typically seen this kind of a automated camera mode be of interest is when the meeting room that the camera is being deployed in is actually is somebody's meeting room, maybe the meeting room next door to an executive's office where this is their space. And when that, even when that executive is in a meeting room with others, when they start speaking, they are kind of expecting to have the floor, and therefore they have this kind of spotlight view outside of the meeting room. So again, it highlights the talker. You see me much, you don't see me as one of the 5 people in a broad view. You're able to read my nonverbals very closely, but it comes again at the expense of being able to read whether or not Frank is making fun of me as I try to be serious, or is also intently listening and therefore very serious. And what I'm saying is even more important to the content of the meeting.
Awesome. And I love it. We've got a raised hand on the side. So thanks for jumping in and right in the middle of the conversation. I love that. Lauren, let's go ahead and allow Mike. And what can we help you with? I've allowed your mic, but you have to unmute.
Okay, thank you. I just took myself off mute. How many external microphones could you use?
So we don't today. The PanaCast 50 is limited to the microphone array that is built into the bar.
Okay.
So again, and Josh was kind of mentioning this. There's, it's part of why we really target rooms of a certain size for the PanaCast 50, both the USB to PanaCast 50 that I'm demoing here, as well as the forthcoming Android-based P50 video bar system. Expansion is something that we get questions about. We'd be fools not to be looking into it, but today we don't have sort of an expansion mic pod solution where we would add on for rooms that get into kind of that, that fill the gap between one room size and another room size type of a thing. So yeah.
I think to add more context there, though, in terms of expansion, spot on, right? And what I was referring to was like, let's say you've got a Teams Rooms on Windows set up, and you want to plug in an external USB mic to that. Then you can go into the Teams Room settings and choose that microphone as your mic in the room. But that's, again, a USB plug, right? You're not able to plug in.
That would be connected via USB then, correct?
Right. To the Teams Room system. Right, not the PanaCast 50 itself.
Okay, thank
you. That gets a little funky in a mode like this, where if the speaker was on the ceiling behind me and your voice was coming out of the speaker, and it's a separate standalone audio system, our camera might think it's me talking, even though it's your voice coming out of a speaker. So again, that's where, we've really kind of designed this to be an all-in-one kind of integrated solution. And again, expansion brings in enough, there's various topics of it for expansion and then various considerations. And one of the things I wanted to say, it's not fun to demo sometimes waiting in silence, but you've seen my camera here. When I go idle, I haven't figured out how to make the dummies that are here with me speak. But when I stop talking, when the room goes idle, we go back to the view that we saw in Intelligent Zoom. We go back to the group view. When I start talking again, we go back to the speaker view. So that's kind of the way this is designed to work: is idle room, see the group; active talker, see the talker.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Lauren. Appreciate it. And again, I'll throw it back out there. Anyone else, something pops up while we're talking, please throw that hand up. We'd love to jump in and clarify on the spot. So good stuff. Okay, virtual director. We've got one more that we're going to demo, and that is dynamic composition. And dynamic composition is our meeting equity play, right? There was this kind of period of time where meeting equity became the big thing, and a lot of different solutions started coming to market, or questions, or how do we accomplish that? How do we make all these people in the conference room now feel just as included in the meeting as the remote people who have their own square? Everybody had their own Brady Bunch square. How do we give people in the room that same inclusion? And so our solution to that is what we call dynamic composition. But as you see in this image on screen, what that does is it takes the 4 most recent speakers in the room. So again, that's four windows, and it will put those people in their own little box. And of course, right now at this point with like Teams or Zoom, it sends a single stream with those 4 boxes to the platform so that you can see them in a box in the platform that you're watching them on. But the 4 most active or recent speakers, I should say, not active, recent. Now, when those individuals maybe get in closer proximity, let's say you got 5 people in the room and that 5th person is not captured. Maybe 2 of them get a little bit closer. The intelligence on board can sit there and say, hey, these people are closer together. Let's frame them in, give them a box together. It makes more sense with the real estate. And then that other person can now get their own box. So it's kind of one way that it can make the most of the dynamics in the room as people change their position around. Now, a couple little caveats on the technical side that I will call out before Rob kind of shows how this works. This does require USB 3.0, okay? Underline that, USB 3.0 required for this capability. All the other camera view settings and controls that you might otherwise use, you've seen Rob with the remote in his hand, those things are disabled when dynamic comp is enabled and is the mode of choice. So when you are setting your PanaCast 50 up to use dynamic composition, it's a great choice. It serves a very good purpose, but that's a specific use case that you're setting it up for. And these are just a couple of the caveats you want to be aware of when it comes to the dynamics of video in the room moving forward, at least until you change the mode to something else. So with those caveats, I'm going to go ahead one last time here. We'll spotlight Rob, and I'm going to stop presenting, and he'll show us how dynamic comp works.
Yeah. So again, separate camera that I've got connected to my workstation that I'm just using. I've got a Stream Deck with OBS. So I'm just going to switch cameras. But again, just to kind of show you the reminder, right? When it's just Mac and Frank and I in the room, you sort of see the 3 of us. We're not so small as to be anonymized, but when we switch to a camera that's in dynamic composition mode, you can see we're sort of more of that video feed is now dedicated to us than it is to, showing the room as it is, right? So particularly like the space here gets a little bit, gets kind of ignored, and, Mac is actually sized up a little bit. Again, I'm sort of in a room that might be like a 4 or 5 chaired bullet table. So just from that standpoint. So again, when we get wider, we're now, sharing more of a sliver of the room, go back into dynamic composition. And again, we get, more equally sized. We're sort of quarter scale, right? If we were all in a gallery view where you are all at 1-to-1 scale, we're now sharing our square at something more like a quarter scale, which again, just helps us feel a little bit more present in the meeting. So again, that's, I just saw a thing about audio. You guys are hearing me, right? Okay. I'm not muted. Okay, good. That would have been fun to talk for 2 minutes and find out that you were getting to do it again. So again, that's 4 of us. So I'm going to let Charlie just join the meeting late, of course. And so, you can see the camera sort of follow Charlie over. Mac's off camera now. Josh mentioned that, we've got some things that we do to think about, how do we choose what 5 of us are in the squares right now, right? So again, if I could make one of these dummies start, if I could get Charlie or Mac to talk, one of the things we do is we are using the mic array similar to the virtual director mode, where we know who of these things is talking. And if the thing that's talking is not in the gallery, we'll promote it back into the gallery, people who start talking who are not currently being shown. The other thing that we'll do is where we have Mac, Frank and I, you can't do Frank or I without showing, the other of us. So Frank and I get put into our square, and now Mac got promoted back into the gallery. And sometimes I'm able to sneak out of this and it doesn't see me. And then I start talking and, oh, look at what the sales engineer said is going to happen. But if I, see, it chased me out of there. So it's all good. But you get the gist, right? So if I had been off camera and I started talking, I would have been put back into the gallery. And that's kind of that shows kind of the 2 forms of logic on who in the room is being seen, is being presented by dynamic composition into the gallery that it's maintaining. Anything I missed, Josh?
No, that's great. I did want to call out, thankfully, Parker in the chat corrected me there. So I want to call that out in audio that USB 2.0 devices are now supported with firmware 5.2.1 for the PanaCast 50. So take that thing that I gave you there a minute ago with a grain of salt. If you're not on the most updated firmware, that might be the case, but just upgrade your firmware and boom, you're in business with 2.0. So, all right, let's get back to presenting in Teams. I did also see a question in the chat about multi-stream capability, and get my presentation back up. I want to address that really quick before we move on, because I didn't plan on covering that in the session, but it's a good one to cover. That is one of those items that is, of course, dependent upon the platform that is ingesting those streams, right? Teams or Zoom has to be able to take in those streams. So in conjunction with the timelines of the platform, we are enabling multi-stream capabilities in one of our future this year value pack updates. We have a couple more coming before the end of the year, and one of those is going to bring multi-stream capability. Now, when that comes to fruition, that will give 2 streams to the 2 most active speakers, and that 3rd stream will be the context of the room. So multi-stream is coming very soon, all lining up with it being enabled on the platform side. When we talk about Microsoft, right, this fits right into the IntelliFrame story. You've got the Smart Gallery side on the Zoom side. So yes, that is coming. Capability is going to be there in a couple months, so stay tuned for more of that. Parker, thank you for keeping me honest in the comments. I appreciate it. Okay, whiteboard content camera. So this is another one of those things that is, I love this one because whiteboard content camera functionality isn't unique to Jabra. That exists outside of Jabra. Other providers have cameras that do whiteboard content for Teams or whatever, and that's great. It's cool, right? We do that too. The big difference that is unique to Jabra is that we don't sell you a separate camera to make you be able to do it. You can do it from the PanaCast 50. The PanaCast 50's got those 3 cameras on board. And one of those, when you're using the sharing content into the room, will go and capture the content in the room, digitize it for that digital representation in the meeting, and at the same time, allow you to keep streaming the video of the participants in the room. So you're not sacrificing in-room video in favor of the content. You're getting that whiteboard content camera functionality. You're doing it without having to buy and install and wire and cable a whole separate camera. That's huge. That's a really big deal, especially for teams that are like, how can I simplify my deployment? How can I reduce complexity? How do we get the most out of this device that we are purchasing? It goes back to what I said earlier about there being 9 processors on board and us continuing to build on the capabilities that all that processing power brings, you can bring a product to market with some great features, and then you keep adding new ones in that you as the customer, as the partner, you get the benefit there that these just keep coming to the camera via updates without me having to go out and buy a brand new product for it. So that's kind of the cool thing about the Whiteboard content camera here is that it is on board. That's the takeaway that I'd have for you. So on a technical level, how this works, again, in a Teams environment or wherever the environment, you're going to click the share button, share the content camera. But in order to have that content camera defined, you would go into some, the software like Jabra Direct from us ahead of time. You define where the content is in the settings, enable content camera functionality. So you predefine all this so that when you're actually in a meeting, you click the share button and boom, it already knows where it's looking. There's also a setting in there to enhance the contrast so that the colors on the board are less washed out. They pop more. They're more crisp and clear for you. So Whiteboard capabilities built right into the device as well. And okay, that's someone coming into the meeting, not a raised hand. Got it. All right, let's move forward here. Intelligent speaker and facial recognition. So to this point, I have talked about things, with the exception of multi-stream, that are already present on the PanaCast 50. At Infocom, we announced a couple new features that are coming again in these value packs before the end of the year. Now, a couple of these that I'm going to loop together for the sake of brevity here are the intelligent speaker and facial recognition technologies. Now, I put asterisks up here because these are functions that support Microsoft Teams features, right? So when we talk about this, yes, they're capabilities of the PanaCast 50, but they are specific to the Microsoft platform that we're talking about at the moment. Now, just like with the Whiteboard content camera, no additional devices are required to make this work. It's an update. It's a value pack that comes to you free of charge, brand new functionality. What does Intelligent Speaker do? Well, if you have it turned on in your Microsoft Teams tenant, for starters, at the admin level, and then if individual people enroll their voice profile, if you will, by going into the Teams client and capturing and recording their voice and storing that in the cloud, it's very much opt-in from the Microsoft side. If you do all that, then you need a speaker in the room that will not just hear your voice, but then process it and be able to associate it with the data in the cloud so that the people in the room are not attributed as speaker 1, speaker 2, speaker 3 from the conference room in your transcripts and your intelligent meeting recaps. Instead, it's identified as we see on the screen here, Kevin Chatow instead of speaker 1. You're getting the context of who actually said what in that room via the intelligent speaker functionality. Up until now, any device that has been certified in this category has been a separate device for Microsoft Teams. That means, great, I want this, we're going to use it, now go buy a new device. I'm going to hit this point home, I'm going to beat it with a hammer here. This is not a separate device, this is not a separate cost to you, it is new functionality that comes to your existing PanaCast 50 via an update. It's a beautiful world we live in, I tell you. On top of the intelligent speaker functionality, we will be releasing right after that facial recognition capabilities, which again, play into Microsoft's story here of identifying people in the room specifically, not just by their voice anymore, which already is a capability, but now by their face. So just like the end user would opt in with their voice, they now have to go in and create a face profile, right? Just like with Windows Hello, you capture your face from the front, the sides, all that good stuff. And now you can be identified by your face, and words that were spoken in the meeting are attributed to you in the transcripts, in your meeting recaps, in all the nice new Copilot awesomeness that's coming to the market. It's a really big play in that regard. And again, these are features coming to the same front of room device that already exists. So that's number one there. I'm being careful. I almost put this call on hold again here. I almost tapped it. All right, moving along to this last item I want to touch on. This is intelligent meeting space. The industry may refer to this as room boundary, right? That's maybe how you hear about it in other circles. Jabra has labeled this capability as intelligent meeting space, And what this means, again, this is coming in one of these fall value packs. So very imminently, you will see this capability coming, and it's slick, right? And again, I said I'm going to beat it till it's dead. I'm going to. There's no additional device required to make this work. It's all on board via the update. What it does is it creates a video boundary, a visual boundary, which solves for your meeting rooms that maybe have glass walls, like we see in this video right here. You've got a glass wall. Now that wall has some frosting on it, right? So that might help, but maybe you've got glass walls that aren't frosted. When someone walks behind that glass wall, if you're using, I don't know, intelligent Zoom, and you want to know, hey, someone's walked into the room, capture those people, that's a great feature. Well, now someone is not walking into the room, but they're walking behind the glass of the room, and the camera sees them. So now the camera is going to adjust to capture these people. We're going to zoom in. We're going to zoom out. When people are walking back and forth across that glass, that's a problem for intelligence. So I love what Michael Trester referred to this back at Infocom. And he said that we are using AI to ignore AI. And I love that. So that's kind of what we're doing here is we're with this room boundary feature with the intelligent meeting space, you are saying this, I am defining where the room is. It goes this far back and this far to the sides. That's my room. Do not count anyone beyond that. This is also helpful in your open meeting spaces. We all are seeing the office evolve. Some of those meeting rooms are no longer meeting rooms. Now we're meeting out in kind of unique open office type concepts. That's cool. It's trendy. It's really neat. It's a problem for audio and video, right? So when you need to define where those open area meeting spaces are, this feature is going to be a really big deal for that. So stay tuned. That's coming in a very near-term value pack. Again, you predefine that and you're off to the races with it. So we are now 43 minutes into this, and I am to the end of the content. Before I just kind of open up questions here, which I'm hoping you're all bursting with them, I want to give a little shout out to our September, technically speaking. That'll be on September 27th at 1 p.m. We will have the registration page out very soon, so keep your eyes peeled for it. I will be noisy on social media about it, so it should be hard to miss, but we'll get that out there soon. And future technically speaking events, we'll kind of call out the next one with maybe a QR code for the registration so you can do it on the spot. But what this is we're launching the PanaCast 50 video bar system, our Android bar, next month, right? September is almost here. It's coming to the market. It's hitting the streets. Super excited about that. There's quite a bit to digest. Well, it brings a lot of the awesome goodness that we see on the PanaCast 50, and it looks almost identical. I mean, you look at it back there, we see it's a little wider, but you know, there's some nuances. There's things we want to talk about. There's things we want to cover that we want you to know about. And there are also updates coming to it in the near term that we want to also make sure we kind of pop the hood up and talk about what that means for you as you evaluate whether or not you're going Android or not with the features of the PanaCast 50. So stay tuned for that. That's coming next month, September 27th. And with that, before I say, what are the questions? Please note that QR code at the bottom. Survey is optional, but of course, we would love to know how we did today. Is this helpful? Is it useful? What else do you want to hear us talking about? What do you want to see us get more into the weeds with? Let us know at that QR code there. We really appreciate you being here and cannot wait to see what your thoughts are and how we make this better into the future. So, anyone want to throw their hand up, raise a hand, or to the people that are supporting on the back end, have we had any other good questions bubble up in the chat that we should maybe talk about at this juncture? I need to have some like music cued at this point so that we kind of, it's not as awkward when it goes quiet. You know what I mean? But
only if it's like the Benny Hill theme song.
Yeah.
I know there was a question in the chat about configuration stuff. And I think Mike is able to share like Jabra Direct and show some things about like, you know, setup, but also like the camera controller, like how to be able to, like what kind of things you can do during a call, if that's something we want to go to, if there's no other live questions. Just letting you have that, Josh, if you want to return to that.
No, that's great. There's not any hands raised at the moment. So, and I did not see what that question is. So if we want to spotlight Mike or let him present, then that would be great.
Yeah, I'm going to share my screen. Hi, everyone. Michael Tressler, like Rob, a senior solutions consultant at Jabra. focused on video. So the question came up about how do we manage these devices? So I can go back one. We have an application free download called Jabra Direct, and it's the tool we use for everything. So you can see my PanaCast 20 camera, my Speak 275, which I'm using right now, the Bluetooth dongle for a wireless headset, and right here we see the PanaCast 50. So I can click on there, and then the fun part as we start is go to camera controller. This kind of does some real-time things. So if you see in this little window here, I'm at full 180-degree panorama. So you can see all the mess in my office, but then I can click intelligent zoom, and it should zoom in on me and Taylor. So much like Rob showed, one way you can do these changes, if you're using this as a laptop, have the app open, you can set this. You can also then, there's the concept of presets. So if we want to zoom in on some things, just zoom in on the records. And then save this as a preset number 2, so that if we then go back to whatever, I can then just click to preset and bounce back and forth. And that preset, well, you can then easily get to using the remote control. So that's some of the kind of in-meeting real-time stuff that you can do. And then settings gets you into all of the real deep fun stuff, like naming it. I have multiple PanaCast 50s, as does Rob and a few others here. So A, B, C, D, how I did. These devices do have networking on them. So if you're in a BYOD mode, not attached to a PC, these can phone home to our management platform and give you statistics and let you manage and monitor and push settings down from a centralized console. So I'm not going to go through all of these settings that are available through here. But the question was also then, how do we permanently change the settings and some of the things like that, some of the different views? Those are all buried within here. Let's see, automatic zoom mode, intelligent zoom, or virtual director. We can flip those here and there, the speed at which we zoom. So that's a quick run through of Jabra Direct. It's a free tool, and that's what you use to manage the camera if you're in the room with the camera, but you can use Jabra Express to manage cameras in bulk from a central console.
One nice thing I'd just like to mention too, just to build on that, Mike, thanks for showing that. Jabra Direct doesn't love having multiples of the same device connected. So I was, my Jabra Direct was going to be a little confused if I went to my desktop. So thanks for pulling that up, Mike. The nice thing for, I assume a lot of us that are on the call are administrators or folks who are deploying the rooms and kind of like, so you want the cameras to be an intelligent zoom, for instance, when you, as part of kind of a pre-install step of making sure the camera's on the latest firmware, put the right settings in. With the Jabra Direct app, when you save those settings of the camera, those are in the camera. So, again, I think we've made this clear over and over, but, if you put a camera into intelligent zoom mode and disconnect your laptop and say you're a BYOD environment, when an end user walks in and plugs in the camera to their laptop, they don't need Jabra Direct. There's no extra application to download. The camera will, when it starts, be in automatic in the intelligent zoom mode, for instance. So those are settings that are blown into the camera versus settings that are only related to how the camera behaves when it's connected to your computer. So just from a kind of a setup and a persistence of settings perspective, I just wanted to add that.
And Parker's got his hand raised. Before he did, though, I did notice Lauren's hand raised again. Lauren, did you have another question you want to jump in with? No? Good to go? All right, Parker, what's up, man? Oh, we need to allow Parker's mic. Parker, why? Yeah, we need to fix that. All right.
Hey, no, it's fine. I'm here. Hey, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Parker Dunbar. I'm a solutions architect here at Jabra. I wanted to ask a great question that I saw in the chat, and I think it's probably one of the questions that everybody on the sales team could answer. But James asked us, what's the top value add we can explain to a customer who's comparing different hardware options against the PanaCast 50?
Oh. Well,
Not trying to put anyone on the spot.
That's Parker. A good one. That's a loaded one, right? That's where do we go with that?
I know.
Yeah, go for it, Rob.
For me, again, it comes down to one of the, when we talk to customers who are sort of in that exploratory phase, room layouts. How are your rooms laid out, right? There is a physical aspect of meeting room design. We've all seen the furniture the office furniture brochure with the bullet table, or even those modular units where, you know, there's kind of the meeting surface with the connected stand at the end of the display goes on. And again, for maximizing the utilization of square footage in a small meeting space, having the table up against the wall gets you an extra seat or two. And in that scenario, it puts undue stress on most webcams, most normal room cameras that have not, you know. So again, I don't lead with 180-degree field of view, but you want to talk about a differentiator. Most meeting room cameras cannot see both front seats if they're occupied. You know, those with mechanical pan and tilt might be able to get over to C1, but that kind of moves the start of the blind spot around the horn on the other side, right? So it is, you know, it starts there. Where it goes forward from there then is, you know, if those types of rooms are at all present in an organization, the PanaCast 50 is actually, it doesn't have to have a bullet table for the PanaCast 50 to be a good option for a meeting room. But if you have those rooms in your environment, you can actually standardize on the PanaCast 50 across rooms that are up to 15 or 20 feet deep. It's not you don't only get value out of the PanaCast 50 if you've got tables up against the front of the room wall, but if you have those, you can sort of standardize those on rooms up to like 20 feet deep and minimize kind of the heterogeneity. Oh my gosh, if that's a word, of the device.
It is now.
It is now. That's a Robism right there. I like it. All right.
You got one. All right. Yeah.
And I love, you know, I'll add on to it. I love what Jeff said in the comments, the way he worded it. I was going to be a little more diplomatic about my answer there, but he just, you know, the most advanced video bar that enables a plethora of software features, purpose built for UC platforms, requires no additional hardware purchase to take advantage of the future of AI. And he said it's the smartest bar out there. I love that. But I mean, that going back to what I was hammering on and beating over and over again, the architecture behind this device allows for it to be much more than what it is at the time of purchase. It is growing and becoming more than what it was. It is adding features and capabilities on that are new devices and new line items and new expenditures, new complexity, new installation with other solutions. And to me, that's huge. It's not just huge on the budget side or on the installation side, but it's huge on continuing to get new value and capabilities as time goes on. So that's kind of probably one of the bigger differentiators, especially now that I am seeing with the PanaCast 50, with some of what we've announced recently, stuff that we are able to announce that fits right in to all the AI and Copilot goodness that we're hearing from partners like Microsoft and others. That's possible because of the architecture that exists within the bar. So that would be what I add on to that. It's great open question there. Thanks for putting it out there. All right. Any other questions?
Yeah, Josh, there's one, and I know there's, you know, public roadmaps and private roadmaps. So what about getting controls onto the MTR touch panel for Teams rooms? Is there anything going on there? Maybe that's a Parker question, but what about the ability to maybe set some camera settings from Teams rooms directly?
Yeah, so thinking about what's on the public side of the house, Microsoft does have their, I'm trying to remember the term of art name for it, but we have some of that coming on rooms for Android. So, you know, Microsoft, they love to have feature parity across all the platforms. So it sure would be great to see those type of intelligent meeting space features coming at a user control level.
So again, another thing to add that's public and doesn't require any pinky swears is, you know, I mean, we have a pretty good partnership with Crestron. They have a SKU of their Crestron Flex kits that include you know, the B31 kits, if you're familiar with their catalog, that includes the PanaCast 50 as the bar. And I actually have it running on one of, I in fact have some things off camera, but Crestron's, you know, colloquially it's called the page flip, right? Their custom control capabilities where you can flip out over from the MTR user interface on a Windows-based Teams room and bring up a Crestron control. I know I've got a project that one of my friends at Crestron made for me running on a Flex where it is able to control the PanaCast 50 just basically using UVC. So it is that, aside from dynamic composition, which is sort of a different mode that the camera needs to be in, for the modes that can be freely kind of summoned during a live video stream by the PanaCast 50, that being intelligent zoom, video or virtual director, and then manual pan, tilt, and zoom, right? It's E pan and tilt, you don't pan and tilt until you've zoomed. But those kinds of controls can be added to a Teams Rooms on Windows system using Crestron's in-market tools today. Good question. It comes up all the time, right? The idea of, again, in my role, I work back from the person in the room trying to make the thing do what they want to do, right? So if the end user is not happy with how the camera's working, is there some way that they know to change the way the camera's working, right? So Teams Rooms on Windows systems do afford that. But again, it's pretty common in terms of options and things people might be able to do to make that easier. So loud and clear if that's heard.
This is awesome. Yeah. And I mean, for everyone that's still on, I think most of us are still here, right? We haven't lost too many yet, but this is exactly what we want this call to be about every month. So to reiterate, this will be a monthly thing where we kind of pick a topic that's top of mind or that's a burning thing we're hearing on the sales and consulting side of things. But we want this to be a place where these questions can all be brought, where the conversation can be had, ideas can be thrown at us, feedback. That's what the point of this is. I've seen a few positive comments along those lines in the chat here, so thank you for those. But this is the idea. So please keep an eye out as we move forward. Like I said, next month we'll be talking about the VBS video bar system as we launch that. And so if you haven't heard enough about that as we get ready for that launch, we will be diving deeper on that and pulling back a little bit of the hood of the vehicle. So watch out for that registration. And then beyond that, month to month, we're going to keep uncovering new things. We'll get into some audio stuff as well. I tend to focus really heavily on video, as do many of us on here, but we'll get into audio things as well. We'll get into some cool management platform stuff that is happening toward the end of the year as well in one of these sessions. So that'll be a good one to keep an eye on at the same time. We are a couple of minutes out. So before we get to the very end here, anyone want to throw that hand up or throw something in chat, squeeze it in before we shut this thing down for the month. All right. Again, keep an eye on those emails. We will do the random drawing of the attendance report that we pull after the event, and we will send a confirmation to the email that you have on file if you won, and then of course go over shipping and all that fun stuff with you via that email exchange. So keep it out there. Look for spam folders, all those disclaimers about watch your email, and good luck to all you on that. Excited to hear. For that person that does win it, I would love to hear your feedback next session as well, right? Let us know how you're liking the devices, how they're working for you. But I guess we can go ahead and call it a day. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to everyone on the Jabra side for showing up, answering questions, participating. Rob, demoing, love it.
Thanks.
And let's do this again next month.